Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Game Biz Heroes. Today, we have an extraordinary guest who has spent over 15 years shaping the mobile gaming industry with his expertise in publishing, monetization, and strategic leadership. With a career spanning roles at industry giants like ironSource, Luna Labs, Unity, Kwalee, he has launched over 100 mobile games and managed more than 1 billion in client spend. A lifelong gamer and a former rugby team captain, he brings a unique mix of passion, discipline, and innovation to everything he does. Please join me in welcoming the brilliant John Wright. Hello, John. And first of all, could you please introduce yourself briefly?
Yeah, good to see you again, Melanya. My name's John Wright. I'm an independent gaming consultant, but I'm also the ex-vice president of mobile games of Kwalee, part of the ex-founding team of Luna Labs, which was eventually acquired by ironSource and Unity. And I've been in performance marketing in one way or another for the last 15 years and specializing in games for the last 10 plus years.
Mm-hmm. And you had an incredible career journey, of course, from ironSource to Kwalee and also other different companies that you already mentioned. Was there a defining moment that made you realize that mobile gaming, mobile publishing maybe was your passion? And I think I saw the answer in one of your LinkedIn posts, but I will hear your answer and I will just say what I have already read about it.
Yeah, so basically I owe all of my success to my wife.
Yeah.
Like my wife is literally the most amazing person I've ever met. We've been married 15 years this year.
Wow.
And we've been together since we were sort of 19.
Awesome.
She really is like the strength and the light of my life, right? So there was a point when I was younger where I was same as a lot of people from my cultural background. I come from a very working class, very poor background, and my parents were like, "Hey, you need to get a good job, right? You can't be." My dad was a builder, my mum was a nurse, and they were like, "You need to go to college, you need to get a higher education, you need a profession." I got sort of pushed into accountancy and finance because I was good at math, right? Like someone literally looked at my grades one day and went, "Do you know what? You, John Wright, you look like an accountant. You're going to be an accountant, right?" And then I spent a huge part of my life from this probably happened at 13, 14. And then I went to college and university and then I went to work and I was like 25 working in finance, doing a good job. I was a management, accountant for a company, earning much more money than my friends were. And a lot of the time you base your success on your financial status, right? Oh, because I was earning more money than my friends, I must be doing right. But actually, I was in a horrible place. I was like, mentally just wasn't good. Like I hated what I did. I was coming to work every Monday, just dreading it. And I also had this very traumatic experience of my dad passing away. My dad had a heart attack. I was there, and it was a really sort of like eye-opening moment. Seeing this man that I love die in front of me, and at that point, it kind of was like an epiphany. I said to myself, like, I can no longer live like this. Like, life is short, man. Like my dad was super healthy, and then overnight had a heart attack and died, and I was like, I need to do something I'm passionate about. I need to do something that I enjoy. I need to get up in the morning and be happy. But I was also a young guy, married. I also just had this added responsibility of supporting my mum, right? Because my mum just became a widow. So I was like, I felt so much pressure, from just everything to try and make something work and again financially stable, whatever. And eventually my wife knew I was really unhappy and said to me, like, "Look, John, this is not good for you. It's not good for your health. It's not good for your mental health." And then she was the one who said, like, "What do you want to do?" And I was like, "I have no idea. For the last 10 years I've been focused on one goal, which is becoming an accountant, working in finance, earning a higher salary." And then we sat down, and over a couple of weeks, we really decided. And I've always been like a really passionate gamer. I've like one of the most amazing experiences in my life was being 5 years of age, and my parents, who could not afford this, got me a Sega, and it had like Sonic on it, and it was like an amazing experience because I never dreamed that they would be able to afford that, and they found a way to get it for me. And and that like kind of shaped my life. And then for all my teenage years, I was always a gamer. I loved the escapism of games and the different worlds and everything like that. So eventually I ended up saying to myself, right, I'm going to go into gaming. And yeah, well, I first got into performance marketing because performance marketing is a lot of numbers, it's a lot of calculations, right? CPI, IPM, ROAS, ROI, all of these are mathematical calculations, right? So there's a lot of transferable skills from finance to performance marketing. And then I did that for quite a long time. In the last probably like 3 or so years, I've dedicated to publishing, like i.e. I've gone from supporting game launchings by performance marketing and working with some of the biggest companies in the world. I was head of client success for Unity for Europe, so I was managing billions of dollars of spend, or my team was managing billions of dollar advertiser spend. And then I was like, I wanted to go and work hands-on games and make successful games. And I'm here now, basically, Melanya. And then I'm now, as a consultant, I'm working with a number of studios, a number of tech companies, trying to help them become successful in a very tough market. And I love what I do. I love the people I spend time with. So yeah, that's me.
Guys, make sure to stick around until the end of the episode because I've partnered up with the top gaming conferences to bring you exclusive discounts. I'll be revealing a special promo code you don't want to miss, so stay tuned. Also worked in some of the most transformative, let's say, periods in mobile gaming, hyper casual periods, challenges of IDFA, right? Changes also. So how these shifts also shaped your personal approach to strategy in gaming business, innovation, and so on?
Yeah, look, I think you said the right word, innovation. When I first got into mobile gaming, rewarded video and interstitial wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
You had in-app purchases and you had offer wall, and that was the only way we could make money in games, right? And there was a lot of issues there because a lot of people couldn't get the economics to work for in-app purchase, right? Like, you had superstars like King who were making billions on Candy Crush, and you had Rovio and some of the bigger IP companies, but there wasn't as many studios as there is now because it was so much more difficult like 10, 12 years ago. And then we saw this really transformative sort of period of like rewarded video interstitial allowed people to make money from ads, which was which created a new way for people to successfully build and launch games. And then we had hyper casual, where marketability was king, and you could actually, for the first time in my career, I saw like a sub-dollar CPI. Right before, it was, if you were a casual game, it would be $5 to $10, and if you were a social casino game, it would be $20 to $30, and if you were an RPG, it would be $40 to $50. Yeah. It was crazy expensive on the marketing side. And then accessibility came through hyper casual, right? And not only did that build accessibility to the developers themselves, but it also put games in the hands of people that were never gamers, right? It was like, my aunts, my cousins, my mum, like playing like match-free games, and like they've never in their life would have ever played games. Oh, sorry, like the hyper-casual games in particular, like just became more accessible, and they had these very simplistic core mechanics. And again, you saw countless people on the train playing voodoo games, and the total addressable market of games in terms of the amount of people playing games went up dramatically. And that was like such an amazing thing. And I also feel like we're going for another big transformation, which is the direct-to-consumer era, right? So post the Digital Marketing Act, what we're seeing now is there's lots of people out there trying to change the landscape. Epic Games have launched a mobile store, right, to try and combat what Apple and Google have built, this duopoly. There's new companies like Skitch, who just raised a bunch of money, that are going to build new alternative stores. You've got companies like, some of the ones I'm affiliated with, like Stash, that are bringing web stores and giving developers the ability to improve their margins. Like, there is so much innovation, Melania, that is happening right now. And we haven't even touched on AI, right? Like, AI in monetization is transforming our ability as developers to increase profitability on our games and make the right decisions, you know. For years, we had product managers doing very basic A/B tests over a very long time. Now, with the right technology and the right partnerships, and then or building internally, we can get AI to make such better decisions and much quicker decisions to improve the unit economics of our games. And the biggest problem in games today is that the unit economics doesn't work for a lot of people, right? The cost of acquiring users is too high, the LTV is too low post ATT, and now there are things in the market that are changing again using AI that are going to make it a much better 2025 and 2026. 2024 will go down as probably one of the worst years in gaming, I think, period. But we're bouncing back.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah, I support all the insight that you share right now about AI, about different kind of, technologies and innovations that we should follow and we should be open to them, and that's how we can make great things again in the industry. Yeah, for sure. And what about small studios? Let's talk about them a little bit. So what do you think is the most critical factor for a small studio to achieve success in today's competitive market?
Yeah, look, it's really tough being a small studio right now. You know, probably, do you know what it is, Melanya? We got very comfortable a couple of years ago during the hyper casual boom of being able to successfully build games with small teams.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you could be a 5-person studio in Turkey and build $100 million game. You could be a 10-person studio in Belarus and build $100 million game. And hyper casual gave that ability to people, right? It was all about the core loop and if it was sticky and if it was marketable, if you had those low CPIs. The toughest thing with small studios in games right now is the complexity of the games themselves has evolved or actually reverted back to the pre-hyper casual state. What that means is things like meta progression, community aspects, even like player versus player or you know, P versus sort of AI, P versus E, sorry. Like all of this stuff is kind of like the standard now, right? Like you kind of need to do it. And the problem is that stuff is super complicated. You know, like you need serious amount of engineers, product people, ML people. Like it's so tough being a small studio in today's age, trying to launch games that fit the market profile of success. And for me, this is why, you know, I just completed a big publishing series, right? Because I'm really trying quite hard right now to educate both the developers on like what the publishers' expectations are, and also the publishers on like, you know, where to get the best results from studios, right? And where these negotiation points are, where these critical bits of information that you might not know are, which can help you close a deal. Because yeah, I really believe that we're currently in a kind of golden era of publishing because the publishers, you know, the big guys are very dominant. They've got all of the resources and the data and the money and the technology. Like small studios can't afford to go pay for something like Heroic Labs, which is a very expensive live ops solution, but you need very, very good live ops to make a successful game, right? So the ability to self-launch, you know, in this market is very tough for a small studio. For me right now, I think, again, why I was saying about this golden age of publishing is if I was a small studio, I would utilize all of those resources, money, technology that the big publishers have, and I would grow, right? I would use this as a growth ladder to get my studio in the ability where I've got money in the bank, I've got reputation, I can then go to VC and get a good deal, and then I can start expanding and doing self-publishing. I think going from zero to self-publishing now is really, really tough. So I do think that there's a lot of companies out there that could potentially work with a publisher for a couple of years, gain experience, gain recognition, get some numbers behind them. And then again, when they go to VCs and VCs are also, there's a lot of cycles to investing money. And at the moment, VCs are a little bit more apprehensive about investing in games. There was a lot of money in investing in games a couple of years ago. They're waiting for those cycles to mature and people to exit so they get money back in their funds. So it's not a great time to work with a VC, really. I mean, you can, but you probably would get a much better deal or much more for your money in a year or so when again some better times have happened, some more exits have happened, people want to inject more cash, etc. So yeah, like I said, if you're a small studio, I really advise you to just speak to a few different publishers and find the right publisher for you. Not every publisher is the right one, but there's some out there that will align with you culturally, that will match up. Their thesis will be games that you are building, and you can build a beautiful partnership that will get you to that next stage of your evolution, that will allow you to become one of those big players and self-publish, etc. So utilize what's around you.
Mhm. And you've also launched over 100 mobile games globally. So, and
Yeah.
and managed over 1 billion, I think, in client spend. So,
Yeah.
is there one project or game that stands out as particularly meaningful to you?
Oh, it's a great question. It's a great question.
Maybe it was the first one, I don't know, or
Yeah,
the
do you know
biggest one.
what? Do you know what? There's always one that always comes back to me, and it's actually a Kwalee game. I wasn't a Kwalee at the time, but it's a really fond memory. So it was at the beginning of the hyper casual boom. So this was, I don't know, 6, 7 years ago, probably, 2017, 18, I would say, maybe 18, 19, but around that region. And hyper casual, just a new thing. Like, I remember sitting down speaking to Dennis and Burak, who were the founders of Rollick when they were just a four-person company, right? And now they're huge, been acquired by Zynga and stuff. But it was same with Homer Games. I remember sitting down when they were a really small team, and I remember all these companies that were just starting or really growing or in this high growth stage. But yeah, I remember meeting Kwalee, and there was a game called Plank. And it was a very simplistic game. Like, you had these very cutesy characters which were based off animals in a very square format, and you had to hold your thumb down, and it created a bridge. And the bridge, depending on how long you held your thumb down, the bridge was bigger or shorter. And you had to time it correctly to make sure the bridge hit from one side of something to another side. And if you were too short, your character would fall to their death, and then you would have to start the level again. But so it was all about timing it to make sure the bridge would hit different things, and then you would progress, and eventually you would save another animal, and that animal would become a new character, and you kept going. And I remember being in the office, and people were like on Slack saying, "Hey, like, what's your high score?" Like, and everyone was trying to beat each other. It was super competitive. And eventually, with that game, it was one of the first ever successful playables that were ever created. So I was working with Iron Source at the time. We were working with Playworks, which was the internal development studio. Playables were not really a thing at that point. And there was only been a few of them maybe that had already been on the market. And we made this playable, and there was always this goal of a 40 IPM. So that, 40 IPM means 40 people out of 1,000 impressions downloaded the game. And if you could get a 40 IPM, you knew the game was going top one in the charts. It was just that, that thing that we looked for. And this game ended up getting something crazy like a 62. And we were just like, oh my God, this playable is insane. And Plank went, within a couple of days of launching this playable was controlling like 80-90% of all of the spending, millions of dollars a week. And we went to number one in the charts, and it all came from something that I worked on, and it was like a really powerful moment. And the other thing is, that was my first experience in playable. And then we went to go and be part of the founding team of Luna Labs, which was like a playable technology, right? And then off the back of Luna, I joined Kwalee, and it was like all of this kind of stuff was like interlinked, So yeah, probably that one. But if not, I've worked on Call of Duty Mobile. I've worked on Talking Tom. I've worked on games that have generated over 1 billion or done 1 billion installs. And I've been very, very fortunate in my career to work with like the biggest names in the space. And yeah, just very happy to do what I love and work on these big games and work with studios, right? It's my passion.
Oh, lovely, lovely story. Yeah. And what inspired your transition from, let's say, partner side roles at Iron Source, Luna Labs to developer side leadership, like at Kwalee, for example?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, to be honest with you, my goal was never to work on the third party side. Like, I never wanted to be anything but someone who worked in a studio. Right. My goal was to go from working in performance marketing at e-coms companies, right? Like I used to work with like Ralph Lauren and stuff like that, to working for performance marketing in games. I wanted to be a performance marketing manager, a UA manager, a monetization manager in a studio. That was always my goal. I took my first job in gaming at a company called Green Man Gaming, and this was 12 years ago maybe, and so mobile was still very, very early at that point. So I was working more in the PC console space, Steam, etc. And a friend of mine was working at Iron Source, and he said, "Hey, look, you're now in gaming, and I know you're like really into gaming. You're very knowledgeable about gaming, and we need someone in Iron Source in the UK office who's going to manage this." And I was like, I wasn't super interested, but I was like, okay, let me have a conversation. And I ended up going for the interview, meeting James Salins, who was the GM of Europe at the time, and then one of my sort of mentors in my career. He said to me, like, look, man, if you come and join us, you're gonna work with King and you're gonna work with Rovio. And I was like, damn, these are the biggest games in mobile, or biggest companies in mobile. I was like, wow, this is crazy. And then I ended up joining, and I ended up spending, overall about 8 years of my life in either Iron Source, Luna, post Luna acquisition, Unity, all of that stuff. And so it was never like my dream, Melanya. My dream was to make games, to be not just support the launch of games and make money for studios. It was, I want to be involved in the day-to-day process. And I never got that opportunity working in the third party side, right? Even though I worked with studios in a very, very close way, and I was spending time with these people every week and flying to different locations, and I knew everyone from the founders to whoever, I still wasn't part of them. I still wasn't the person influencing the strategy of what games to build, etc., etc. I was always on the outside. Um, and then yeah, look, through my relationship with the team at Kwalee, and I also had a stint at Coda, which was also a games publisher. I started to learn a lot more about publishing, and I kind of built up a reputation of being someone who's very educated in the publishing landscape and understands this space very well. And yeah, look, I initially joined Kwalee as VP of Publishing, and then I got promoted to VP of Mobile and took over all of the internal development. And yeah, because again, the founders believed that I was the right guy for the job. But my passion has always been to work with studios on games rather than maybe work on tech that supports games. I now, at this point in my career, see the pros and the cons of both. So I like working, and now as a consultant, I get to choose working with tech providers and and gaming companies. I choose.
Yeah.
So I get the best of both worlds right now. So yeah, but that's I've always wanted to work on games, and that was my biggest driver of getting into games over 12, 13 years ago.
Mm. And so you recently left Kwalee after, many years spending in a great VP of mobile publishing role. So what's next for you, John?
It's a great question again. You're pulling some good ones out of the bag today. Like you're good at this. You're good. Keep doing what you're doing. But no, look. At the moment, I'm really fortunate to be a little bit in demand. I don't want to come across as
A
too
little bit, John.
Yeah. Look. I don't want to be. I want to try and remain humble. Okay, I want to try and remain humble. But I'm very fortunate at this point in my career where people think I have a lot of value to add, and that they think they enjoy what I say and they believe what I say. And so at the moment, I'm working with a bunch of companies, like I said, I named a few earlier, but like Stash, who I think are revolutionising the D2C space. I'm working with Aniba from your home of Lithuania, Melanya. So who I love. Like the founders of Aniba are amazing guys, and they're working on some really cool stuff in the trying to break into the mobile space with their rewarded app Snacksy. And then I'm working with some studios like Cocoon and my old friend Henry from Lightmere. And I'm just having a great time working with some really talented companies, both on the tech side as well as the game development side. So I'm getting everything I ever wanted, right? I'm working hands-on strategy and building games. I'm also supporting tech providers who are trying to help improve games, right? And even Elitatics, like obviously your company, what you're trying to build right now is trying to support studios becoming stronger and better and to make more money. And that's good for all of us, right? Like I always have this saying, which is a high tide rises all ships. But technologies like yours are going to come to market and make studios have higher LTVs. Higher LTVs equals more profit. More profit equals more growth and more investment in games.
Yeah.
So it's two sides of the same coin, right? We need good tech supporting the growth of games, and we need good games that can utilize the tech to generate money, right? So yeah, look, I'm really happy where I am in this consultancy life at the moment. I'm not saying that I won't go back into a studio. I'll be honest, if someone called me tomorrow and said, "Hey, we've got an amazing executive role in a big studio," would I think about it? Would I entertain it? Of course, right? Because I want to see what the opportunity is. But at least for now, I am enjoying the freedom. And there's also the other personal aspect, which is, I adopted two boys a year ago. My wife and I adopted two boys, so we now have two beautiful sons. And I want to be present and be there for my children and be available and at Kwalee I was traveling a lot. I was away every week, and that was one of the major reasons why I left, was not because of the professional aspect. It was purely the professional the personal one, and my morals as a person. I wanted to be more present for my children. So yeah, so that gives me a bit more freedom. But yeah, look, who knows what's next? Who knows where I'll be at the end of the year? I don't know. It's a good time to be alive.
It's true. It's true. Amazing, amazing. I see that you're very happy at the moment, at a happy place.
Yes, I am. Yeah. Look,
That's
I've got very good life balance. I take my kids to school every morning. I pick them up every morning. I cook them dinner. I've also, my wife has supported me professionally for a long time, and at points in her professional life, she prioritized me over herself. And that's marriage and that's compromise, and I understand that. But equally, I want to pay back what she did for me in times where she sacrificed some of her life and progression to look after our kids or whatever, so she can do what she wants to do, right? Like this is marriage, this is compromise, this is how you support one another. So if I can be a bit more available at home and give her the ability to focus on her own career and progression for a while, then I really want to do that.
And now we're moving on to marriage advices. But I agree. Look, everything is correct. Life and relationship is a compromise, and then when maybe a couple of years the person was focusing on his career, so now it's time to switch a little bit the roles, and that's how everyone can be happy and achieve their goals. So yeah, that's very important.
Exactly.
And
Look, at the end of the day, you shouldn't be going through life being selfish and just thinking about yourself, right?
yeah,
If you truly love someone, you need to want them to progress and to improve and for them to be happy. And it's never 50-50, right? There's always someone who at some point has got a little bit more, right? Because of something, there's some priority. And at this point in my life, my wife just got promoted to be HR director from working at a place for over 10 years. And she deserved that. And now, she's busier and she's loving it, but she needs me to do more. And now is my time to give back.
And if you could go back to yourself the first day in the gaming industry working? So what advice would you give yourself?
Oh, your network is your net worth.
Okay.
Very,
That's a good one.
and I'll explain that. The reason I've been successful in games is one, because I'm passionate, but two, because I feel like I've always been very open and so conversational with people. Like at the end of the day, I'll go to conferences, people will come up to me and talk to me and ask me questions, and I'm not the sort of person who would ever say go away. Like, oh, I haven't got time for this. Like, I'm always going to be someone who can talk. And I think the last 10 years of my life, I spent so much time just spending time with people, learning about people. And just because someone's a UA manager today does not mean they're not going to be a C-level of founding one of the most successful gaming companies ever in 5 years, right? You can do anything in this industry. And I think, if I was anyone out there, I would say, like, meet your peers. Like, I've had people message me on LinkedIn saying, "Hey, John, like, I follow your content. Could we have a chat? I need some advice." I'm like, "Yeah, sure, let's do it." And I've even, I've had situations where founders have reached out for me for advice, and I've ended up over a year or two talking to them at events, catching up with them regularly, and then they asked me to be on their board. And that's evolved from being just giving some friendly advice to being something a bit more tangible, to being now part of their business and focusing and helping them on their strategy. You can't be short-sighted in gaming. You need to understand that, the people that are here, and it's still very small and niche as well, right? Like, we're well connected, and reputation means a lot. So if you're a good person and you spend time with people and you give them your time, and again, you focus on your network and growing stuff out, you don't be a dick, because that's the other one. Don't be a dick, right? If it's a life question. Some people like to be a dick, but I don't. So, like, but if you're a good person and you give people time, it'll get paid back, so good, if you do good deeds, and you'll get good stuff back, and karma and all of that stuff. So network and be a good person. Those are the two things I'd say really helped me in my career, actually.
Yeah, I agree. I also mentioned that people usually just change companies, change roles, and they very rarely changing industries.
Yeah.
So that's also a very important part, that, do your network, expand your connections, talk with people, because most likely they will not change the industry, but they will just change roles in the company. So that's how you can, you never know when the person will be working where, with whom, and that's maybe also your business opportunity, not just like personal chat or something else.
You would be shocked the amount of times that in roles I've, like, looked at a company. Say, for example, I was in a tech provider role, and someone said, "Hey, we really want to work with Studio X," right? And I'll look on their LinkedIn and I'll see I know 5 people that work there, and 2 of them I've known for 5 years and always had a good relationship with. And I'll ping that person and say, "Hey, look, would you mind taking a call about this thing?"
Yeah.
And the amount of time people have gone, "No sweat, John, I owe you because of this," or, "Yeah, you're a nice guy. Let's have a call." Like, it's, people generally want to work with people they like and they like spending time with. And so, the amount of times in my career, I've just, an opportunity has come from something, from nothing, like, it could have just been spending a couple of times, having a few drinks, telling a few jokes 2 years ago, and now it's like, okay, there's potential to work with that person, and because of that positive sentiment from whatever your first interaction was with them, that will help you get through the door. And that could be the differentiator between why they want to work with you rather than someone else, especially if you're a tech provider that does something very similar to a lot of other people, right? It's like, how do you
Sales
differentiate
in tech
yourself?
providers. Oh my God, it's a hard topic.
For sure.
Yeah, because I also think that's I had a 6-year background of sales in a SaaS world, let's say. So I think the best sales advice that I could ever give anyone if they ask me for it so I would say that people buy from people.
Yes.
So and the best sales are referrals.
Yes.
So network, and you never know when the opportunity will come. So that's all what I can say. Yeah.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't
Yeah.
agree more. Like you said, people buy from people, and
Yeah.
and I've always had this thing. People might not remember like what you spoke about the first time you met, or
Yeah.
they might not remember exactly where you met, but they'll remember how they felt.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if they remember, if they had like a good experience with you and it was like fun and positive, that's what people will remember, right? So at that point, it's this is why I don't believe in the art of the hard sell. Like if you're like ramming something down someone's neck, you're never going to get conversion or results, or maybe you'll force a proof of concept test, but they only do that to shut you up. And then at the end of they know already that proof of concept is never going to go to the contract stage, right?
Yeah.
So it's just wasting your time. So yeah, I completely agree with everything you've said.
Nice. And on that positive notes, let's move on to the parts of the second part of the interview. So here we will have Blitz questions. The answers can be short, a couple of words, a sentence, as you wish.
Quick fire round. I like it. Let's go.
So the first one, if your closest friend, or let's say your wife, if your wife had to describe yourself in 3 words, what would she say?
Oh, happy, friendly, happy, friendly. What would be the third one? Passionate? I guess passionate. I like passionate. Because I am passionate about what I do. I'm passionate about my family. Yeah. Happy, friendly, passionate. Yeah.
Very nice. So what's your guilty pleasure outside of work, or let's say outside of work?
Sneakers. You can't tell. I love buying sneakers. I'm also like a traditional geek in every sense. Like I love playing games. I read manga. I love cinema, anime, and I've got This is a poster from Batman. Like I've got loads of memorabilia. I haven't done it in a while, but I also build Lego. Like very complex Lego stuff because I find it very therapeutic and calming. So yeah, a lot of the stereotypical geek stuff is really my jam.
Lego is a lovely hobby. I have several flowers, different
Oh, they're nice.
flowers.
Yeah.
This
The
kind of
roses and stuff. Yeah.
roses or bouquets. Yeah, bonsai.
Tulips. Yeah, they do this. It's a nice set. They do it in. There's a flower shop in Amsterdam that is just purely Lego. Like it's a pop up like art place. So it's
Amazing.
I like Lego. I like it. There's something about building something with your hands from start to finish, and then like starting off with just little pieces, and then you have like this big thing, And I did a Lord of the Rings Lego set, which was like 6,000 pieces, which was like, it took me 20 plus hours of building it. And at the end, I felt such a sense of accomplishment because I've never really been someone who's built stuff with their hands. I've always been like an accountant or a tech guy or working on a laptop. So I felt very, very proud of myself.
Yeah, that's amazing time spent for sure. What's one surprising fact about you, John, that maybe most people don't know?
Oh, what a surprising fact that people don't know. Do you know what? It used to be that I was like, I would always say in this situation, did you know I'm a chartered accountant, like a qualified chartered accountant? But the problem is I've been talking a lot recently about my background in finance because people have been asking. So people never would believe someone like me would have, been in a corporate finance world. I've also got I'm extremely tattooed, like I've got like 2 sleeves and, I'm a very sort of transparent and very honest, direct person. So very loud and big. So finance just doesn't ever seem to be something like that. Embarrassing fact, I don't have a driving license.
Really?
Yeah, I don't have a driving license. I was born in the council estate in East London, and people from my background don't really have cars. They can't afford them. So my family never had a car growing up. So by the way, I do own a car. I bought after we sold Luna, I bought myself a Range Rover, but my wife drives it. It's my car, but my wife drives it.
All right, all right. Um, and what's maybe your favorite travel destination with your wife and kids?
Oh, my favorite place I've ever been in my life is Sri Lanka. Me and my wife
Interesting.
went there a couple of years after got married. It's an amazing place. Oh, it has like, you have a very wide range of people and different backgrounds. You have Buddhists, you have Christians, you have Muslims. Um, but the country itself is like an island off the coast of India, and so it's very tropical. You have like,
Mm,
rainforests, but whilst the country itself is not huge, like in comparison to say India, there's loads of different climates, different things. Like I remember me and my wife were there for 3 weeks, and we were traveling around. We hired a car, and we were driving down the street, and then there was like a lake, and there was wild elephants, and we jumped out the car, went down, and just saw these elephants with like baby elephants playing in the water. The people were amazing. The food was amazing. We climbed Sigiriya, which is a mountain, the highest point in Sri Lanka. Again, we did safari. We saw leopards and amazing, amazing stuff. But it was just also a very spiritual place. Like we went to a
mm.
lot of temples, and we found that very enlightening in terms of like seeing how certain people live. So yeah, Sri Lanka is my favorite country I've ever been to. Um, I've been to about 45 different countries, so I've been quite well. Cuba was
Nice.
also a very good one. I really enjoyed that.
Interesting one.
Um, but yeah, Sri Lanka would be my favorite.
All right, all right. And what's the next event or conference where we can meet you?
I'm going to be at Games Forum Cyprus.
Mm-hmm.
So that is going to be, I think, on the 8th of April. I'm going to
Yeah.
be one of the moderators, and I'll be joining a few panels. So yeah, big shout out to Games Forum for inviting me. Always, amazing to be, asked to do something like this. And Cyprus is an amazing
I saw that
location.
you would
Obviously,
say about the Cyprus itself.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's look. I was there last year for the first time. I've never been to Cyprus,
Mm.
and I went to an event called GDCY,
Yeah.
and I was sitting, it was like 28 degrees. I was sitting down, I had a beer, and I was like sitting, it was 2 p.m., the sun's shining. I'm having meetings, I'm meeting lots of creative people, lots of startups,
Yeah.
building new tech and new games. And it was just a really good energy of a
Mm.
place. Obviously, you have a lot of people from Russia and Ukraine and Belarus, and everyone's working together. It's very much done in harmony. Obviously, there's been the sort of geopolitics stuff, which is what's driven that. But it seems like everyone's in a good place and very positive, and I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to going back in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. I've never been to Cyprus too, but I will go this year to the GDCY Fest.
Are you going to go? It was amazing, by the way. We had a lot of fun. They have like a proper party, like a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
not a rave, but like it's a substantial. Like they have bands on stage, and it's like super. Like so, I remember being in the VIP area, looking over an infinity pool, seeing people play live music and dancing, and I was like, this is just for an industry event. This is crazy, this is
Yeah.
amazing. So yeah, I
It's
think you're going to be
Cyprus.
very happy going there.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I expect nothing less that you explained right now. Infinity pool, rave.
Yeah, cocktails, rave. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And earning money while doing all of this stuff, not spending.
closing business whilst having
Yeah,
fun. This is the
that's
dream,
the best part, of course. And the last question I have for you. Let's imagine that tomorrow you can have a coffee or tea with any person from the industry, like publisher, developer from present, from
Oh,
past. Who would it be? And what's the main question that you want to ask them?
yeah. Okay, so there's a very famous Japanese artist called Yoshitaka Amano. and he was the original artist. So he's actually a painter, a Japanese painter, right? Like very famous guy, but he was the original design director on Final Fantasy, and Final Fantasy as a game series is my favorite game series ever. So he's worked on pretty much all of the Final Fantasies for the last 30 years, but he is like a traditional Japanese artist. I just find him intriguing because, you know, they're like, I would never think of someone from like the world of art transitioning into the world of games, but there's that Japanese connection and art and games being so big to the culture. So I would love to just sit down with him and just learn how he got involved in going from being a very famous Japanese art, like traditional artist, to being a design director on one of the first ever big successful RPG games that defined me as a gamer. So yeah, I would just like to know how that happened, because I don't actually know the story of how he got involved with Squaresoft, which would later become Square Enix, which is what it is now. But yeah, either him or Ilka from Supercell. I've never met him, but I'm, you know, connected with him very closely for a lot of different people, and I would just like to also know what the next year or two look for him. You know, he's a very smart guy. He's had a lot of success. I would just, yeah, what's the next step for him?
So thank you so much for 45 minutes. Wow, that's, I think, the longest interview that I had.
I like to talk. That's why. I generally have.
Too.
Yeah,
that's the problem. Because two people met.
We'll just cut it here. We will just turn off. Bye, everyone.
All right, John. So thank you so much for sharing all these insights, all these advices with us. I hope you enjoyed Lithuania. Hope to see you here. Yeah. Cyprus, I hope I will enjoy Cyprus as much as you. Yeah. Because it will be my first time visiting it, surprisingly, but yeah, that's a fact. And I wish you to be happy always as you right now, because I see that you're shining, smiling, you know, you have a great mood, you have great plans, you're enjoying time with your family, and that's and it seems like you are in the best place that's you ever been, and it's just so pleasant to see.
And yeah, definitely the best balanced I've ever been, right? Like, and balance is so important to happiness, and just, you know, the extra time with my family and kids after traveling for so many years and stuff like that is really nice, Melanya. So yeah, I'm really just generally very happy. So thank you again for the interview, and, you know, asking also some very interesting questions that, you know, a couple of firsts. So I'm very, very happy with some of these questions.
Thank you so much. As you know, I've partnered with leading gaming conferences to bring you exclusive discounts, and today I'm excited to highlight GDCY Fest 2025. This incredible event will take place on May 30th at the stunning San Rafael Resort in Limassol, Cyprus. GDCY Fest is an open-air seaside game development conference that blends insightful content tracks with festive outdoor activities, live music, and unbeatable networking opportunities. It's the ultimate summer destination for game developers and industry professionals. And here's the best part, I've got an exclusive promo code just for you. Use Melanya15 at checkout to get a 15% discount on your ticket. You'll find the code in the description below. Don't miss this chance to learn from top experts, explore cutting-edge technologies, and enjoy a one-of-a-kind festival vibe. Let's make May 30th unforgettable. See you in Limassol. That's a wrap for today's episode of GameBiz Heroes. Make sure to subscribe, leave feedback, and share it with your friends. And of course, stay tuned for more inspiring stories and insider tips from the brightest minds in gaming. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you at the next episode.